Along about 1938, I had studied quite a bit about the mind. I made myself enough cash so that I could sit back for a short time and be very intensive on this subject. And I carried forward a series of biological experiments and discovered, oddly enough, that a cell can be taught on down its generations. Very crude biology. But I found out that you could teach cell A something, such as a puff of cigarette smoke contains nicotine and is deadly and will make you sick. And several generations later, we have educated the cellular line to flee from steam, which contains no nicotine. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Cellular memory, the cells could remember. This was enough for me. I started to add it up. I said, what is the common denominator of existence? And came up at that time with the dynamic principle of existence as survive. Well, however else it went together and whatever else I did about it, I wrote a book at that time, a book called Excalibur, which you have never read, mostly because it is simply a dissertation of what might be. In other words, I drew the high mark, the high water mark of processing, therapy, speculation, philosophy, drew it very, very high in the form of speculation, and then had absolutely no bridge to go between that and what was factually true in the society, what was observably true and what was speculatively true. There was no bridge between. It took a number of years to get a bridge in between those two facts. I kept on writing. I wrote more and more successfully. Everything was going along fine. Went down to Hollywood, wrote pictures, things like this. Had a very full life, as a matter of fact, professionally. And the next thing you know, while we were all involved in a common war, which evidently now has been totally undone and has to be done all over again, but that's the way wars are. Wars never solve anything. They just put the solution off a little further. And during the war, I had some very interesting experiences on the subject of the mind. I was on one ship that had about 700 men on it, and we were getting 2 people a week going mad. 2 people a week went mad on that ship. That's an awful lot of people going mad. But in view of the fact that we had no replacements, they were simply left on duty for the most part. We particularly contested taking off duty. One chap who had had the bad taste to want shore leave in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and had come up to request it of the executive officer, and had found the executive officer in a shower. The executive officer was not well liked on this ship. And the executive officer, from the lather and spray of his shower, said something coarse and uncouth to this fellow. This fellow whipped out a knife, dived into the shower, chased the executive officer out, and we had the wonderful view of the executive officer running round and round the deck with this madman behind him brandishing a knife. I remember stepping out of my cabin with the gunnery officer and watching this pair go by on their first round. And the gunnery officer said, "Here," he says, I've got a gun, let's stop this." And I said, "Why?" About that time, why, two masters at arms entered the parade. And it became very, very amusing, so we watched it go by. There hadn't been any amusement for a very long time. Finally, we got tired of it, and the gunnery officer and I checked the madmen by putting out a foot. And the crew wouldn't speak to us for a week. But this fellow had to stay on duty. The medical doctor of that ship and I had the same cabin. And the men in the crew would come up to get bandaged up or something like that at all hours of the day or night. When the medical officer was out, they would get me, you see. I'd process them one way or the other. And when he was there, why, he'd give them pills and sew them up. So they had a good time of it. And I had an awful lot of subject matter to study. The medical officer turned it all over to me. He was kind of bored with it all anyway. He was on the verge himself.